Welcome back. Nitin, when Anna Hazare launched the campaign against corruption, Koramangala residents played a key role in Bangalore. How did the RWS help in motivating the citizens?
I think they did three important things. Number one is they were vital in disseminating information about what was going on to the residents. See, there was a lot of information, disinformation, misinformation floating around at that time, if you recall. I think one vital task that the RWS did was to disseminate information to the people about why we need a strong Jan Lokpal bill, number one. What are the features that are required in a strong Jan Lokpal bill, and why the government's draft of that Lokpal bill just didn't cut it. So this was a vital piece of information. The other thing is RWAs serve a vital role in getting the foot soldiers out to the protests, because we provided the manpower and the boots on the ground, so to speak. I think that was one of the major roles that they did. There was a referendum, for instance. Anna Hazare's group, India Against Corruption, did a referendum. I think many of the RWs were very active in mobilizing signatures on that referendum initiative.
I think we did over 1,000, I think, Absolutely. In Koramangala. And I think what we did during that time was, all we did was provide a platform or an opportunity for people to protest and express themselves.
But they did come out.
Oh, they came out. And what is heartening was the youngsters came out. And we had youngsters at the end of a day's protest saying, where are we protesting tomorrow? And they would be there with their candles shouting slogans. And on a Saturday evening, I think it was, we had a protest just outside Forum. And we had to do it on the roadside for various reasons. And we had 2,000 people there who just refused to go home till the police had to come and request people to go, saying it was after 10 and we had to break up.
They would have stayed on.
Oh, they would have stayed on, yes, yeah.
Dr. Adhikrishnan, what kind of corruption that Koramangala residents face every day?
I think it's pretty much the same that most people would face. We have problems with people trying to, you try and register a property, you have a problem. You have problems with water, with electricity. I think those sort of problems with corruption, I think, are pretty universal, and we face them. I think till now they were just considered daily nuisances in life that you had to put up with, get over with, and carry on. Now we're considering them as issues. And that's, I think, the first step in actually fighting them. And again, it's difficult to fight these things individually. And that's where, again, community participation comes in, and it's much easier to fight these as a group, and more people will come out with their problems of corruption when they know that there's a group backing them. And I think that's where an RWA comes in.
I would like to add one more thing, is that one of the most serious aspects of corruption is the category of people who can least afford it are being subject to the maximum corruption. For instance, we sit in our relatively more comfortable lives, and of course corruption does play an effect, but those people we are talking about in the poorer classes face corruption on a day-to-day basis, and they're the people who are least equipped to deal with it, because corruption constitutes a huge chunk of their already depleted earnings. That is, I think, a very, very huge issue.
Nitin, I'm going a little away from here what we are discussing. There is an attempt by the political class to tarnish the institution of Lokayukta. Some are also talking about shutting it down. How do you, as RWAs, propose to fight such a move?
I think if we see that this is if this is gaining traction among the political class, I think the RWAs need to mobilize initiatives, just like how we mobilize support in favor of a Jan Lokpal bill. Let me say, Karnataka has one of the few functioning Lok Ayuktas in this country. In fact, when this discussion was going on with the Jan Lokpal bill, this Karnataka Lok Ayukta was specifically mentioned as a model, at least to emulate in some way, shape or form for other states, even if it's still a relatively toothless body. Now, it's very disheartening to find that this institution is being politicized of late. And I think it's time to give the Lok Ayukta statutory powers The Lokayukta must have the power to initiate prosecution, and he should not need to run for permission from the powers that be to file cases and initiate prosecution. I think we RWAs should start playing a role in the future and mobilizing support for that also.
Dr. Radhakrishnan, you want to add to this?
Yeah, I think it's going to be people power at the end of the day that is going to prevail. Otherwise, the politician will have a say. So I think RWAs, as big groups of RWAs, umbrella organizations of RWAs, need to put pressure on the government to make sure that such a thing doesn't happen.
Coming back to a small other issue which always bothers citizens, stray dog menace. Stray dog menace is a big issue all over Bangalore, even in Koramangala, I'm sure. How do you handle it? Is animal birth control program effective in Koramangala?
Absolutely not. We are told we have an active animal birth control program going on in Koramangala over the last decade, and the stray dog population has multiplied several times. So I don't know what this is. I don't know whether this is an immaculate conception, but the animal birth control program isn't working. Now, what the solution is very, very controversial. But I think somebody needs to take the bull by the horns and say, this is what we need to do before people start dying of rabies because they got bitten by a dog on an early morning walk. It may sound like an extreme view, but that is something that scares each and every one of us.
Where do the problems come from? Are the animal right activists or the BBM?
I think it's a combination of several things, Balram. See, to add something to what Dr. Radhakrishnan said, we've started trying to do something in a small area of Koramangala, Jakasanda block, which is a particularly severe case of dog affliction. Now, what we're trying to do is to bypass the BBMP structures on this and bring in private sector people, organizations, NGOs who would try to do this job independent of a BBMP contract. We found there were so many issues out here. For instance, BBMP was paying too low a rate for a dog to be sterilized. So some organizations, it was alleged, were fudging the figures and not sterilizing dogs. This was what we heard. We also found that residents are not doing their role. For instance, there were people we found in Jakasanda block who were complaining about the dogs and also feeding them. So we were asking them, how do you expect stray dogs to come down when we found one gentleman who was feeding about 25 dogs from his house. So as a result, nobody is able to come near his house in the evening because there's a pack of 25 dogs out there. So residents also have to shoulder some sense of blame out here. They have also not been blameless in this. BBMP has been an utter disaster in the stray dogs area. Maybe the way to go is from some RWAs to involve NGOs directly and try to deal with it.
This is a question for both of you. With the help of the Namma Bengaluru Foundation, what more do you, as RWAs, propose to do in Koramangala?
I think increase accountability of public servants. I think that is the crying need of the hour at the moment, because there is just no accountability at all. And I think accountability will come when there is more interaction, because they will start then to see our problems, our commitment to sorting these problems out. And I think that's where NBF can provide that important link between the officials and the residents, because we may not have, or many RWAs will not have that wavelength to actually reach out to the higher officials especially. And I think that's where Namma Bengaluru Foundation can play a real role in bridging that gap and thereby acting as a bridge to sorting problems out.
Yeah, I would just like to add that perhaps it may be a good idea to have a confederation or a grand organization with representatives from RWAs of different areas. In one sense, all our problems are very, very, very similar. You mentioned, for instance, we talked about stray dogs, civic issues, and so on. These problems are not unique to Koramangala. They exist in virtually every locality in Bangalore. It could very well be that solutions exist in certain other areas at Bangalore which we could use and transplant into our areas without having to reinvent the wheel, as it were. I think NBF could play a great role in sort of coordinating this among all RWAs and creating some sort of apex body or some sort of advisory body among all RWAs. It can be knowledge sharing, knowledge pooling, and try to use some of our expertise and ideas to help out others, and we could learn from some of their ideas to help us out in our problems. That's something that NBF could do in the future.
This is something personal, which Dr. Radhakrishnan, you are a practicing doctor. How does that work as a doctor help you in doing work with the RWS fighting for civic amenities?
One of the things that's involved in training to be a doctor is to put in hard work and to persevere with it. And I think these are the two things that you require in great amounts in an RWA, because you are dealing with public and government agencies. And I think it's that discipline that you learn in your field of work that you bring into this field as well. And I think that helps a lot.
Nitin, you are an industrialist.
Yeah.
How does that help you in being a proactive citizen?
Well, I think the biggest thing that it helps is, in managing anything, whether it's a business or an RWA or your work. The important thing is a common set of skills, a set of managerial skills that apply in running a business as an industrialist, also apply to managing work in an RWA. In that sense, I think managerial skills are universal, so I think that really helps.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Dr. Radhakrishnan.
Can I just say,
Yeah, please.
I think the RWA now is like an industry. You need to have a CFO, you need to have a CEO, you need to have a HR manager to recruit people, and each with his own or her own skills, and they all come together to form a successful partnership.
Yeah, well said.
Dr. Radhakrishnan, Nitin Sheshadri, many thanks for coming over to the studio.
Thank you.
Indigo,
Thank you.
And explaining to our listeners the work that the RWS have been doing in Koramangala with the help of the Namma Bengaluru Foundation. My best wishes. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Balram.
you.